Hello everyone, my name is Peter, and in today's video we're going to be making Snake in Scratch. So what Snake is a game where you control a snake that grows as it eats, and the goal is to not run into yourself or the walls. Basically what we have set up right here is the basic controls for the Snake game. So I use a variable called direction, and this determines what direction the snake goes. And basically, we want the snake to run in a direction forever. So even if we're not pressing any arrow keys, it should still run in a certain direction. So if I play this program right now, I'm not really pressing anything, only like a couple taps, but you can see the snake continues to go forward. And we achieve that by using a variable called direction. So this direction variable can be set whenever an arrow key is pressed, and when it is set, in this forever loop, we check what the direction is. So when up, down, right, or left is pressed, it is set to the certain direction that is pointing, and then in this forever loop, we change the y or x value by the corresponding amount to make it move in that direction. So for up, it'll change y by 10, down, it'll change y by -10, and so on. Now the next part is how we actually make the snake grow. And right now this is a simpler version, so at the end all I do is have a create clone of myself block. And then using the when I start as clone, we can wait 1 second and then delete this clone. And basically what that does is whenever a clone is created of the snake, it waits 1 second, deletes the clone, but since clones are being created constantly, it gives the effect that the snake is actually has a certain length. So we can see by pressing play right here, the snake is about the screen length, but if I make this wait into half its original amount, the snake will be visibly shorter. So we can use that to make the snake game actually work the way it's supposed to. So you might have noticed there are several things that aren't really right with this right now. Basically, if we control the snake and move it around, first of all, you see that even if we run into ourselves, nothing really happens. We have to make some sort of game over for this. And also, the snake can move into itself. So if I press up then down, it goes back down into itself, which is another problem that we have to fix. So let's move on to how we actually solve these problems. So what I've done is added a couple of variables to make this a lot easier to navigate. And first off, I'll go through which variables there are and what exactly they do. So length is basically what controls how long our snake is. So as we went over earlier, the amount of time we wait is basically the length of the snake. So if we put this length variable in however long we're waiting, then we're going to be able to adjust the length of the snake by adjusting this variable, which will be important when we add actual growing by eating. So next, snake speed is just a variable that controls how fast the snake goes, and basically all I did was put it in whatever the change y or change x is. You can see when it moves the opposite direction, I just use snake speed times -1. Now direction is something we already had, but now I'm just setting it to right, which means the snake is going to start off going towards the right. And then previous direction or prev direction is a variable that will keep track of the previous direction and make sure the snake cannot go into itself. So if we were going right and we wanted the snake, we press the left arrow, that means the snake is going to go into itself, which is not good. So what the previous direction variable will do is make sure that it cannot go back into itself. So how we implement these is basically in the forever loop that controls our key pressing, we check if the previous direction is not the opposite direction. So let's take this up arrow pressed as an example. If up arrow is pressed, we check is the previous direction not down? And if it's not, then it's okay to set the direction to up. But if the previous direction is down, that means going up would be going back into itself, which is not good. And we do this for all the other ones to prevent the snake from going back into itself. Now the next part, we're going to implement actual scoring. So you can see here we have an apple sprite, which is what we're going to use for the snake to eat. And it's pretty simple. All it is, we have a new variable called score. We set it to 0 at the beginning. And then in this forever loop, basically, if the apple is touching the player, that means it's being eaten. So we change the score by 1. And then we change length by 0.2. And you can adjust this number. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that it goes up, which means whenever the snake eats the apple, it's going to increase in its length. And then we have this block. It's a make a block where the apple goes to a random position. And how this works is that in edit right here, when you first make it, the important part is to click run without screen refresh. That means like while it's running, you can't see what's actually happening. And that's important because this basically detects if it's touching the player, and it basically doesn't go to it goes to a new random position until it's not touching the player. So that solves the problem of the apple going to a position that the player's on, and then the player just immediately eating it, which doesn't really make sense. The next step is to determine when the snake runs into itself or runs into the wall, so we know when to put game over. And to do this, it's pretty simple. All we need is 2 costumes, and they have to be of different colors. So like same size, same everything else except for color. And basically what we'll do with this is that we'll make one of them the head of the snake, and then we'll use the other costume to make the body of the snake. So over here, we can say switch to costume 2 or costume 1 in the beginning, and then when it starts as a clone, we can switch to the other costume, and that will make it so that the head will be a certain color and then the body will be a different color. Now, with this, we can also add this small wait block here right before create clone of myself, and this will prevent the head from running immediately into the body so that there will be a bit of space in between it. And that's important when it comes to this block right here. So what this does is it basically detects when the snake, or it detects when to put game over. And we basically just have wait until touching edge or touching the color of the body. And then once it does do that, it'll stop everything. And there's a small wait before that because when a snake first starts, it's going to be like in itself. So we need to wait a little bit to make sure the snake doesn't immediately stop. And we can run it right now and see how it goes. So as you can see, the snake is moving around and it has that small bit behind it, and that's the color of its body. So as I control it and eat the apples, you can see it grows, and the more it grows, the bigger the part behind it gets. Now, if I run into myself like this, then the whole thing stops. And basically that makes it able to detect when it's running into itself or the wall. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out. Thanks, and I'll see you guys next time.